Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Karan and Kristin. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today, we are talking with Kaitlynn Mika once again. Last time we talked to her was on episode 40. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, we encourage you to go back and check it out. We had a great talk with Kaitlynn about how she's stirring up the status quo by being her own friend. And the last time that we chatted, my internet was acting up for most of the interview. So we're on to take two today. And Kaitlynn is a lifestyle and fellow Enlifted coach who's rebelling against the diet culture. And we're going to talk about lots of fun things today. So Kaitlynn, we're glad to have you back for round two.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So last time we were talking about how you are creating your own friend. So what have you been up to since we last chatted with you?
Yeah, there's been a lot of movement there, and a lot more narrowing down the path to being my own friend rather than. I know we talked a lot about self-talk last time and talking to myself like a friend, and that's continuing. And then there is a lot more going on with writing. I recently created a spell where I wrote down every way that I supported my body, and then every way that my body supported me. And then we got it down to that my body and I are one, and that we have this beautiful relationship of whatever I do, my body's there and supporting me. So I've been doing some nutrition coaching, which is very much in the form of, I'll back up here. I have had in the past a pretty toxic relationship with food, where it's very much me looking at food as, is it good or bad? Very binary. And now I've been looking at food as art and fun, and with a much more feminine approach and a much less rigid approach. So I've really narrowed it down to breaking those toxic relationships. I have stopped drinking. There's the food, there's always going to be work with the self-talk and improving that. So that's been big with writing that stuff down. And then I've also been helping friends work with their generational stories. So we go back into, this has been something, as you both know, I went through a certification on this, and this has been something that's become really important to me because I realized that so many of these toxic relationships that I'm talking about with, food and substances and words were not my stories. They were stories of my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents and my great-great-grandparents, and that's as far as I know. And then who knows where, how far back those stories started. And then they've been passed and passed and passed, and we've all learned these generational relationships that now it's really exciting to have that understanding because we can break them. And there's a quote that it runs in my family, and I'm where it runs out. And I've been very much focusing on that.
Yeah, that's cool. Like we all did the Enlifted Ancestry course together. For those that are listening, basically it was a special course where we, like you said, we dive into the stories of our ancestors. So no longer the stories that we own, but really uncovering the things that are, like you said, passed down from generation to generation. What were some of the biggest challenges you had with that whole ancestry program? Like, I know for me, a big challenge was I actually had no idea most of the stories, or even like the general lives of some of my ancestors, even like thinking about my parents, like their childhood and stuff. I just really didn't know. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you had going
Yeah.
through that?
It was very interesting for me because in the beginning, I felt that my stories were much more insignificant than some of the other people who were speaking. And I was like, oh, like I don't have anything like that, traumatic. And then when I started to go through the course, by the time I was over, I was like picking out all these different stories. And most things that I, struggled with, or that when I was going through coaching or am going through coaching, the things that I'm working on, it was very interesting to connect that to my ancestors. And I know, in that certification, we did a coaching session and I talked about alcohol and our relationship with alcohol. And that has been on multiple sides of my family, an issue that many people have struggled with. Mm-hmm. So it was really interesting to dive into those stories and realize that everybody had their own stories with it. And, whether it was a parent's death or a different traumatic experience, like a sexual abuse or that kind of thing. And then I realized that these people, my ancestors, were stuck in their stories, and the alcohol was there to numb that. And when I was going through it, I was like, oh, I'm unsticking me, because they were stuck. And this is good to realize this, because now I realize that I'm unsticking me. Mm-hmm. And then I changed me to us, and then sticking to unstuck. And I said, I'm unstuck. I unstuck us. And my whole back of my head, I got tingles all the way up my spine. And it felt like every ancestor that I was talking about was in the room with me, and that I had freed this generational curse. And that's one example with alcohol. And then there's multiple other ones too. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's powerful. When I was going through it, I had a story where I was really curious about it, but Karan was saying I didn't really know the story. And so I was guessing in it. And when I dug into the story, it had to do with my great grandpa who came over from Germany as a kid. And then all of his sons. So I'm just going to tell the story. I was trying to gloss over parts, but no, we'll tell it. So my great grandpa, his name's Fred. He came over as a kid, about 9, from Germany. He went back to Germany to fight in World War I. And then he came back to the US. Then he had a family, he had kids, and all 3 of his sons went off and fought in World War II against Germany. So I was curious with that too. My grandpa had also lied about his age to say he was older than he was to go and fight. And he had come back after about 6 months due to medical things. My mom had a thought maybe he felt ashamed when he came back. And he didn't talk much with his family after that. So my mom had a lot of guesses, but not a lot of answers. And when I dug into what my curiosity with it in my one-on-one session, I was asked, what do you think your Fred wanted to say to his kids? And it's pride is coming to mind, and confusion. So it's he was proud of them, and also confused because they went and they fought against his country, and he didn't know how to tell them that he was proud and also scared. And so in that, realizing that, passing on from generation to generation, that inability to first say, I'm proud of you, and then also the inability to hear it, because you can't say it, it's also hard to receive it. And so anyway, it was one of those stories where it's wow, that was from 2 sentences that I got from my mom. And we hold that inside of us though too, because it gets passed down. So if you take those moments to dig in and listen, you can hear too, what is it that they're trying to say. So that's really powerful that you could feel them with you as you were breaking that spell.
Yeah. And it was definitely like going back to what my biggest challenge was, you know, in the beginning, I was like, I'm good. And then like you start digging into it and it kind of, it smacks you in the face and you're like, okay, there's some work and some understanding and some things to figure out here. So, yeah, it was challenging and so necessary. And I'm very, very grateful that I got the opportunity to do that because I know that not a lot of people do. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In our level 3, Enlifted level 3 course, we had started doing some accept and release statements. So we kind of started touching on the ancestor stuff. And I remember saying to Kristin, like, people are crying and like being super emotional. I'm like, I feel nothing. I'm like, am I broken? Like, what's wrong with me? I feel nothing. And I think it was, I think it was the fact that I just didn't know. I didn't know the stories. And was there anything that you uncovered as like a story that was like the most surprising that you would want to share? Like, I know one of the questions is like, is there any family secrets? Was there anything that was like, holy crap, this happened? I had no idea this happened in my family, that you would be willing to share with, the few people that listen?
Yeah, the large amount.
The huge audience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, when you go to the stories I didn't know, there's one that made me laugh that there's definitely stuff there too. My grandma, I asked how my grandparents met on my mom's side, and my mom was like, "Oh, that's a funny story." And my grandpa was dating my grandma's, it was either sister or cousin that she lived with. And she was like, he wanted this car, and I forget what kind of car it was. And she was like, it's me or the car. Like, I want to get married. Like, I'm ready to get married. And so he was like, okay, well, I'm going to get the car. So he went and got the car. And then like 6 months later called, and my grandma answered the phone, and he had asked for, I believe it was Ruth. And she was like, oh no, she got married. And my grandma said, okay, well, do you want to go out? And then they ended up married. So I was like, wow.
Ruth was really ready.
Yeah, like I guess he was ready to get married now. So yeah, so that was just very funny to me.
Yeah.
And then, there's another thing that's been emphasized throughout generations, and that's physical beauty. So there's ties there with that too. So that was very interesting. And then there's a session that I did, and that they were going through this story with their father, and their father had gotten angry at them when they were young. And they said, I felt sad and embarrassed. And I went through the whole story in their perspective. That's what they got to. And then I had them write the story in their father's perspective. And I said, what do you think their father or your father was feeling in that moment? And they said sadness and embarrassment. So I was like, and then at that point I was like, let's release those. So they released sadness and embarrassment because that had been passed down from the father to the child. So it's just very interesting. As soon as you start, that was working one story with this person. So, and they already uncovered that, like, now this is generation, and then they're expecting a child. So, so then we were able to do, I will protect my child from this, and it was it was very interesting to see how that cycle worked on somebody else after I learned it on myself.
Yeah. It's interesting using this approach, because I work with, I also do nutrition coaching with women, and I'm working with a woman, and before I did this course, we were doing working through some of her stories with food specifically, and her relationship with food, which was somewhat unique. in like my experience as a coach. And I also work with her mother, and her mother does not have the same stories. So trying to figure out, well, where do these stories come from? And then, diving into the stories that she learned from her father, right? And taking that back a step. Okay, where did her father learn these stories? And, come to talk about and dealing with the stories from her grandmother, who was Jewish and had fled Germany during the war, and obviously brought with her this very unique relationship with food, that she had from her experience in Germany as a Jewish woman. So it's really interesting that when you step it back, and that was just only a couple generations here, how that's impacting like her and her whole relationship with food and her body and her weight. And so it's really, really interesting. I mean, I love the whole program. And I think it allows us all to like really dive a lot deeper with our clients, than even just doing personal stories.
Yeah. And there's so much more that you can free people from. You dive into that past like that.
Totally.
Yeah. So you talked about like the shift with your ancestors felt like they were in the room with you. What were some of the biggest takeaways that you had while going through the ancestral healing?
The biggest one was that I look at my mother and my father and my grandparents, and I see them as people rather than as the people that they are to me. Like, okay, like my mother has a life outside of being my mother, like she's not just my mother, and so on with all the family. So I have this understanding, and they're as human as I am. So, without having somebody to coach you and say like, this is right in your face, like, how do you see those patterns? So I definitely have that understanding for them and that love for them. And I'm so much more love forward now, since going through that. Like, as soon as, anger starts to boil up or anything, I can be like, am I leading with love? And so it's just, it's like after that course, like 10,000 pounds had been, or 10,000 years maybe had been lifted from my shoulders. So, and I also describe myself as a very empathetic person, or even an empath. So to learn those stories, I did in the beginning, I took on like this connection to what these people were feeling. And then to be able to free that and feel as though I'm freeing them of it in whatever realm they're in now, it felt really good and really freeing. And it, in a sense, provided a whole lot of purpose to like what this earth life is.
Yeah, that it reminds me of like, I think it was on one of the calls, I'm talking about some stories with my paternal grandmother, and Mark asked me what I was feeling, and I said I felt sadness, and he asked me if I was feeling my sadness or her sadness. And that really resonated with me, because I'm like, wow, this is not even my sadness that I'm feeling, right? This is her sadness that I'm still feeling, like, generations later, which is amazing when you like, just change that shift in the words. As we know, words don't matter. That slight shift in the words, to realize like, yeah, I'm sitting here holding on to her sadness, not mine. Yeah.
And it's powerful to realize that you can heal other people's traumas.
Yeah. Yeah, the parent part too, like realizing that they're people, they're human like us. That's a tricky one that was a tricky one for me, especially to move past, because when we're born, when we're growing within our mom's womb, we're part of her for 9 months, and we learn self-love from the love of mom. And then usually the first person that shows love to you after birth is dad. So you learn outside love from dad. And then this is all, or the family unit that you're in for a good chunk of your life. And so they do get these other, like, they're these amazing beings that are so different, which as kids is probably why we get so excited to hear stories of our, like, you were a kid once, you weren't always this person that was big and taking care of me. And putting them in that realm though too makes it a lot harder to start seeing your own things, because we take on so much from our parents that it's like, you feel, I had plenty of times where I felt anger, and directing it toward my parents and realizing it's because of something that I put on them by being like, you're these great people that raised me and you should be perfect. So yeah,
Like
being able to break that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Well, and I think that's why, like, I didn't know any of their stories. Like, it was hard. It was, up until that point, like, not that you don't see them as people, but like, I never asked, how did my parents meet? Like, why would I, at 45 years old, I've never asked my parents how they met until like recently, right? So it was a big shift in just like how you view them. They're not just the vessels that brought you into the world. They're actual human beings with things before and after you came into their life.
Yeah, that adds a whole nother element to it. Like, they have lives before all of their children. Like, they became these people before us. So it's interesting.
They had hopes, dreams. They used to play and have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Then us children came around and crushed them.
Crushed them.
Yeah, exactly.
Allergies over here.
So what's new in your coaching practice since we last talked to you?
Yeah, so this is really exciting. I'm helping with the kids camp at a farm this summer. So the idea of the camp is to teach children about regenerative farming, and then to teach them different life skills depending on the age group. It goes from 7 to 18. So there'll be like fire building and that kind of thing for the older kids. The youngest group is going to be mostly learning about the animals on the farm. So I'm going to introduce some breathing and some affirmations, it's really cool how we're doing it. We're comparing breathing to the animals. So we're doing chicks, chickens, pigs, and cows. And as the animals get bigger, their heart rates get slower. So we're talking about how we have to keep our heart rate or breath rate, both, down to help the animals feel comfortable, especially the chicks, who all they know is the flight reaction because they're so small. So their heart rates beat at I think it's like 160 beats per minute. So all they know to do is run away. So in order to keep them calm, the chickens calm, even the pigs and cows, the kids will be staying calm too. So we're going to do different games to get their heart rates elevated and then have them bring their heart rates back down. With the older kids, we'll do different exercises and have them bring their heart rates back down before things. We're doing first aid too, which I went to a resilience workshop recently, and we actually learned first aid, and we did the same kind of thing where we would get our heart rates up and then slow them down before applying first aid on somebody else. So I want to do that with the kids too, and explain the importance of staying calm in any situation in life, because you're going to be able to react better and make better decisions. So I'm really big on lately. I don't know if it's because I have a niece coming into the world or what it is, that children, teenagers, really giving them these foundations would be so beneficial. And I also believe that this is, I bring it back to me in high school and who I was. And if I would have had these tools before I entered my 20s, that would have been insanely powerful. So the camp was a really exciting opportunity for that, as well as I am looking at ways to do workshops for adults for goal setting and affirmations. Speaking in affirmations too, to me has been super important to, that's like one of the top things that I try to teach people is to stop saying I can't and start saying I will learn, or I can. I talk about this with that camp, the fire building, that I have an example, like I can't build a fire, and that just ends it right there. You're not going to try, you're done. Where if you say I can learn to build a fire, that goes to I will learn to build a fire, which is I am learning to build a fire, which goes to I can build a fire, which is I built a fire. So just switching those words and tweaking those words, it's been so transformative for me. And I want to give that to other people because it's changing.
I like how you took it from, instead of just flat out switching it to an affirmative of like, I'm doing this, to taking the steps to get there, to like, I can't do this, to I can learn or I can try, which then leads down the line to, oh, I did it. And look, I can do it. So yeah,
Right.
I like how you took it as just what's the next step in that? The next step is learning. Okay, can I do that? I can.
When you open yourself to possibilities, possibilities become probabilities.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the camp with kids it's an all summer camp? Like or is it a few weeks?
It's a day camp, and it's the first year they're doing it. So it's 4 weeks this summer, and then it's a half day camp for those 4 weeks.
That's really cool.
It's nice because I do work full time, so it's something that I can swing and work. So it's exciting for me. It's one of those just like fell in my lap and perfect timing and thanks universe moments.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun, and they're going to get some good lessons. So
yeah, foundational. Yeah.
Well, I don't think we've asked you on the previous time we talked to you what good trouble means to you. So we're going to ask you. We talk about good trouble. We talk about creating it. What does it mean to you to create good trouble? And what is some of the good trouble that you're creating?
It's a great question. I actually recently talked about this with Mark, that I grew up and had grandparents. This is also going to connect back to generations. Had grandparents tell me that I was so sweet. And I always got this sweet comment. And normally when I was told that I was sweet, it was when I was sitting down and being quiet and being still and barely noticeable. So my big affirmation lately is that I am bold and sweet. And bold is a word that is very new that I've been using to describe myself. So for me, creating good trouble is talking about the things that are important to you. And, I had times where I was scared to take a video of my voice and post it on social media because I was like, use my voice? Like, what do you mean use my voice? And I've gotten to this point now where I love the power of my own voice, and I am ready to scream about the things that are important to me from the rooftops. I was, with even diet culture, alcohol, those things are so related to me. And I used to have this like, oh, I can't post about those things until I've completely figured it out, and I've gotten like this diet completely down, or I've, figured out my lifestyle and how to be completely happy and completely okay and like standing in the middle of a bar with people taking shots, and then I can post about being sober. And now I'm like, no, like I am doing it and I'm learning as I go and I'm healing myself, and people seeing those journeys. And this is for me too. When I see those journeys from people, it's so much more inspiring. So I'm putting my journey out there for the world to see, and I'm using my voice for the world to hear. And it's very, very exciting.
Yeah. There's power in the journey. Like if you were to see a person like, this is who I was and this is who I am now, and you don't see the in between, it's like, well, cool, how'd you get there? Like and And you don't actually know if they're telling the truth on this is how I got from step A to step B if they hid the journey. So yeah, sharing the journey as you go. It's like, oh, okay, I can learn and I can grow with you. I can see it's possible. And then if you have a setback, like, oh, and it's okay to take a setback because the journey isn't a linear path. It's usually all over the place.
And it's really great to help people see that everything doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to hit all the goals to know that you're a masterpiece and that you're your friend and to love yourself.
Yeah, you hear this similar thing from like musicians or artists that are like seemingly overnight successes, and then they're like, this wasn't overnight. You guys just weren't here for the 15 years of toil that it took to get to this place, right? So there's no such thing as the overnight success. It's the hard work, and I think people need to see those things.
Definitely. And that's the thing too. So many people go through those journeys or, become famous and then start the social media or the website or, whatever it is, the podcast, where start now and then show the world.
I mean, we waited till we were famous before we started the podcast.
Right.
Exactly.
I waited till I was famous until I came on this one. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was actually a lady that posted on Instagram recently that she had people asking her about her podcast, like 1 million listens. How do you do it? And she's like, 9 years of consistency and this many podcasts under my belt and all of these steps that got there. It's like, you're looking at 9 years in, but I've been here for a while doing this and showing up consistently. So yeah, it's showing up, being consistent and taking the messy action.
And it takes time, and people should see that, because looking at someone's, I'm using social media again, and being like, oh, they did it like overnight. Like, when, like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. So showing them that it's okay to take the time, take the year, take the 5 years, whatever it takes. And in that time, be super happy and super in love with yourself while you're getting to where you want to be.
I'm smiling because Karan and I were actually having a conversation similar to this before we started the podcast and you came in. So learning to love yourself. Say that again.
No such thing as a coincidence.
No. Yeah, learning to love yourself where you are, and
but still be like the fact that you can still want to improve, but yet still love yourself exactly how you are and where you are, which is it seems like it could be contradictory, and sometimes that's the hard part. You're like, I want to get better, but I love this thing, but and we can do better.
That actually reminds me of another quote. You're allowed to be a work in progress and your masterpiece at the same time. It's so true.
Yeah. Which I'm going to go on a little side note. Have you heard of Abraham Hicks?
Maybe.
So Esther and Hicks, this is going to sound a little woo when I go into it, but Esther Hicks, she channels Abraham. And so anyway, Abraham is not a person, or Abraham's more like source or God, or what you want to call the greater beings. They are the energy force in the world. And through Esther, like this voice is being shared. And so I had one of my friends lent me a book called Ask and It's Given by Abraham and Esther. Esther and her husband Jerry wrote it, and Abraham, she's channeling as she writes. Anyway, the idea behind the Ask and It Is Given is when you're asking, when you're putting out there what you want, it's to put the energy into what you want and the things that you desire, because there is a duality in it. There's usually what I want and noticing the lack. I don't have it yet. So putting the energy more toward what you do want, because what you put out there, going along with the words that we speak, what's put out there is the energy. It's going to bring it in. So if you're putting out what you don't want or the lack of what you have, that's what's resonating, vibrating toward you. But if you're, and in that practice and in the learning, as you build and grow and focus on what I want to bring in, what is there and what I desire, those things are out there for you. So it's a lot of like what we've learned with the words and a lot with the ancestry. And this in the book, it talks more about your vibration, bringing it in, and like focusing and learning and how to call in what's desired instead of focusing on the lack of what you have.
Yeah. I also heard once that the universe or Abraham or the higher power doesn't hear the word don't. Mm-hmm. So if you say, I don't want this, you're still focusing on that thing. Mm-hmm. That will bring you that thing. Mm-hmm. So it goes along with what you're saying is focus on what you do want, you get what you do want. Focus on what you don't want, you see what you don't want.
That's in the book too. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. And I can tell you that like in my own experience in the last 2 years, it's 100% real. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a practice. So getting comfortable in that feeling into what you want. And then giving yourself grace when you are like, I was focusing on what I don't want. Well, can we turn it around and start bringing in that gratitude again?
Yeah. Because and I've had this like, I'm going to use eating as an example. We were at an event and it ended and we were super hungry and we went through a drive-through and I was like, I don't want to eat this. But I'm in a car with 2 other people who do want to eat this. So I'm going to eat this and it's fine. And then I got home and I forgot to plug my headphones that I sleep with in. And I was like, oh, they're dead. And I was super mad about that. And I was like, and I felt it happening. And I was like, you are having this like chain reaction of getting angry about one thing, where if you just look at it and you're like, it's food and this is what I'm going to eat and I'm going to be okay. Then you go home and you plug your headphones in and they charge in 5 minutes like they do and it's all okay. And it's so, I mean, mindset is everything.
Mm-hmm. I've been going through some of those same thoughts recently in my head where I'm like, oh, I don't want to eat this because then I might feel bloated or I might get like some body aches. And I realize I'm telling myself what's going to happen if I eat this food. And I was like, how about I appreciate this food that I'm eating. And my body is going to take it. And I feel great in my body. My body feels amazing. And telling myself all the good things, like I'm strong. I can do these amazing things that just a few months ago I couldn't do. And this food is like, I'm practicing and I'm learning what foods my body enjoys and I can enjoy other things. And yeah, it's when I'm telling myself that this isn't going to sit well or you're going to feel bloated. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do, obviously, duh, because I just told myself.
Yeah. I had a friend who was going through a meditation certification and the instructor told them, if you tell yourself that something is bad for you, you just made it bad for you regardless. So it's interesting. And me going through, coaching with nutrition and the linear good and bad, it's just very interesting how it all works. It all, serves a purpose.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. So what I got something in my throat and I'm trying to talk. Anyway, yeah. So we've talked in the past where we can find you and remind our listeners, where can we find you? And do you have a name for your coaching program? Is it still the 180 Me or is there a new name?
Yeah. So I still have the 180.me website. And then, which I'm going to, and I'm saying I'm going to on purpose, start that blog up again. And I am also now, my Instagram name has changed since last time. I am clearheaded_Kaitlynn.
Oh. And we've talked before this. You have a poem that you're going to read. So, do you want to introduce why this poem was written, or do you want us to talk a little bit about where that came from first?
Yeah, I can introduce it,
Mm.
definitely. So when we went through the Ancestral certification, we all wrote poems for the children. So future generations, what we would want them to know. And we were given different prompts and we wrote about those prompts. So mine turned into what I thought was going to be one big long poem. And when I've read it to people, they've said, Kaitlynn, that's a book of poems. So that's the next project with it, is how to break it up and divvy it up and make it that book, and at least print it out for nieces and nephews and
So cool.
children close to me and that kind of thing. I read it to my mom and she said, I want a copy. So it works for adults too.
Mhm. Do you have a title for it?
I do. I titled it The Moment You're In. So, and let me get to, because I was reading it before.
So many screens.
Yeah. All right. I'm here. So yes, it's called The Moment You're In. Be loyal to you. Be your own friend. The others you are loyal to will come through your loyalty to you. Learn that your strength is already inside, because it is in you and only in you. Strength is in your soul and then radiates out. Believe you are strong and it will be true. You already have courage. You were born with it. You decide what to do with you. You get to be bold with you. Be bold with you. You are love in its purest form. You don't have to go looking for love. Love yourself and more will be born. You will become your friend. The world is full of so many people. Many will want to befriend you. Befriend yourself first, and the companions you choose will be true. You will face so many decisions, hundreds every day. Believe in yourself. Make the decision your way. Make your decisions with love for you. You will persist. Persist in yourself. Listen to yourself. Listen to what you want. Persist until you are you. You choose your identity. You create your identity. Your identity is built up of what you consistently say and do. Your identity is up to you and only you. You are your greatest power. The world will work to tell you who to be. Remember that you are your power and your choice is free. Confidence is a misused word. Confidence is not something that you have or you don't. Confidence is created in you. Confidence comes from what you do. Study and learn, work to get good at what you want. You will be confident. You will know what to do. Laugh. Laugh at yourself. Laugh with others. Laugh at the squirrel sitting funny in the tree. Laugh at everything that can draw a laugh. Laughter is medicine. Laughter is beauty. Laughter is breath. Laughter is lightning. Addiction is in us, all of us. The way to be stronger than it is to choose to be stronger than it. You choose what is important. You create who you are. You choose your addictions. You choose your freedoms. Walk with you, talk with you, love you, set you free from the addictions that are within you, because they are within me. Fear is poor breathing. Fear is fake. Fear will keep you playing small. Release your fears and release mine too, and rise above them all. Make your steps with sureness. Doubt is a thought. Doubt should be fleeting. It will creep in and you will breathe it out. Your heart will break, I promise, and you will be okay, I promise. You will get up, you will feel the feels, and we will teach you to heal. Feelings are real and important. Feel, heal, and continue. Loss is inevitable. Loss is life. Remember though, those losses make you better if you choose to make you better. You will see other people go through losses and you will see some crumble. You won't though, because we will teach you. When one spark goes out, you use the memory and you create more sparks and become better. Regret is a waste of time. Focusing on an unchangeable past. Regret nothing, for they were all lessons. Lessons that brought you to now. All you have is the moment you're in. Insecurities hold you back, keep you playing small. Watch out for the voice in your head. You control it all. Be bold and be brave. Make it your own way. Wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, tell yourself you love yourself, hold your own heart near. Resentment is a defense mechanism. It is a projection. Keep happiness within yourself and be your own protection. Tell yourself you are strong and will have moments where you feel weaker. As long as you tune the voice in your head, your strength will prevail. Pain will happen, and sometimes it will feel unbearable. You will bear it. How you respond to the pain, that is the choice. Are you sensing the theme here? You have the choice. You are connected. Be aware of that connection. Feel the connection in yourself. You are connected to everything. The universe is within you. You are connected to me and to those that came before me. You are connected to you and to those that will come after you. Build your community. Consciously create your community. Connect to your community. Go on adventures, as we have all adventured before you. Adventures are where you learn about yourself. Your whole life is one adventure, made up of the adventures you choose to take. Find what you love. Let that love become your passion. Learn about your passion. Become skillful. Become skillful by connecting. Use your skills to propel your passion. You are already a master of all that you will choose to be. Choose wisely. Choose lovingly. Your words are everything. Choose the words that come out. Choose the words that stay in. Be aware of how you talk to others. Be even more aware of the way you talk to yourself. Your words can plant gardens or burn down rainforests. Choose to plant gardens. Your words will change the world. You are energy. We are all energy. Create and expel the most beautiful energy. There is dark energy too. Learn how to release that. Learn how to be positive. Start by connecting to yourself. The world outside you is moving, is loud. There's a world inside you. Make it quiet and still. You are magic. Believe in your magic. Create your magic. The world is your magical place, and it is in you to make. There is so much mystery, so much in the making. There's mystery in the past, mystery in the future. Realize and respect that. And know this moment is all we truly have. You are life. We are all life. Our lives mean something. You chose this life to learn, so learn. Learn all you can here. You are eternal. Your life here is only part of your story. Make you beautiful. Live to your fullest. Death is inevitable and beautiful. Do not fear death, because it is only the beginning of a new adventure. Your soul is eternal. Let others live in peace, and when your time comes, leave in peace, and realize that in that moment, you are moving on to your next great adventure. When that time comes that you pass my words on, tell the children what I've said here. Everything has been within us all along.
Thank you.
Of course. And thank you for letting me read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for coming back for round 2 and talking with us again. We had a lot of fun.
It was great to be back.